Hi, welcome to my first lecture on the Queen's Gambit Declined, where I'm going to cover some basic strategic concepts and then start talking about the Orthodox defense. Previously, I covered the Queen's Gambit Accepted, and the Queen's Gambit starts by playing white plays d4, and then black plays d5, white plays c4, and I've already covered where black plays or captures the pawn, the Queen's Gambit Accepted. And now I want to start talking about the openings that start where black actually plays e6, which is called the Queen's Gambit Declined. So maybe I should just back up, and I forgot to mention this on the Queen's Gambit Accepted, that maybe the strategic concept behind the Queen's Gambit Accepted is to give up some central control, because when black takes his pawn, he's giving up some center control, but in exchange, black's going to get some freedom of development. And maybe I should say that in all openings, if you've seen my other lectures, especially on the king's pawn opening, that you realize that usually black will give up something like control the center, or he'll try to keep onto the center pawn, but he'll be sort of cramped. So maybe I should point these out, that usually black is going to respond in some manner. He's going to give up something for something else. So in the Queen's Gambit Accepted, he gives up some central control for development. And then in the Orthodox defense, which I hope to cover in this lecture, it may spill over to another lecture, the idea is that black is going to exchange he's going to have somewhat of a cramped game, and he plans to exchange some pieces to free his game. So, like I said, the Orthodox defense, or the Queen's Gambit Decline continues with e6. And I'm going to play through these next series of moves very quickly and then explain them, because they actually account for a large percentage of Queen's Gambit Decline games. The normal sequence of moves is knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, black castles, and then knight f3. I think 1 in every 5 Queen's Gambit Decline games ends up in this position. You're saying, well, 20%, that isn't a lot, Ken, but considering we're 6 moves in now, and 20% of the Queen's Gambit Decline games actually end up in this position. So I just want to back up now and explain these moves before I cover the Orthodox defense. And actually, some of the other defenses I'm going to talk about start from this position also. So it would be good for us to understand how did we get to this position. So I want to back up now to this position where black just played e6, and then white plays knight c3. So why did white play knight c3? Well, one of the goals for white is that he wants to play e4. Okay. Now, if you think about it, also, just strategically, remember the concepts of the opening are to control the center, which we're trying to do, and that's why the reason white wants to play e4 and has also played c4. The other goals are develop your pieces and castle. Now, naturally, if you look for white, he's going to castle kingside, because he plans to exchange off the c-pawn, and it's going to be safer to castle kingside. So white is almost always going to castle kingside. And if you don't know, black is also going to castle kingside, or most of the time going to castle kingside. So these are good things to know, that as white, you're basically going to castle kingside, and black's probably going to castle on that side too. So what knight to c3 does is, 1, it develops a piece, and 2, it's preparing to play e4, helping to control the center. So this explains black's next move, which is a knight to f6, where so what is this move doing for black? Well, it's actually preventing, and now the knight is developed, so black's also, its goals are also to control the center, develop pieces and castle. Well, it did the same thing. It developed a piece, and now it's controlling this e4 square, once again preventing white from playing e4 to control the center. So now white plays bishop to g5. What does this do? Well, not only does it pins the knight. Now the knight cannot move. Well, it can move, but then black would lose the queen, and that wouldn't be good. So now again, white is threatening to play e4, controlling the center. And I just want to cover one note. It looks like, I'd say some people may not play the next move, which is actually for black, which is the play bishop to e7. They may play some other move. They may not see the real danger in white playing e4. But there's also another danger for black if he doesn't play bishop to e7. Let's say if black just played some random move which had no bearing on the position, like a6. Well, now this is just sort of a sideline. White could play this pawn on c takes d5, and then of course black has to recapture with the pawn. It can't recapture with the knight because it would lose the queen, and obviously it's not going to take with the queen because the knight would just recapture. So it must take with the e-pawn, and now white has this nice move, bishop takes f6. Now if the queen takes the bishop, then white just takes the pawn. And if black takes with the pawn, then basically now look at black's pawn structure. Its pawns are doubled, and where does the king really castle? So you've sort of wrecked black's position. So this is one of the reasons why, for the next move from black, which is bishop to e7, is that it prevents sort of the line we just looked at, the variation, and also now if white plays e4, or it also prevents white from playing e4. So what was white's next move that I showed was e3. Now what does e3 do? Well, we need to get this, we need to develop our pieces, and white's two pieces that were undeveloped before were these two pieces. So we're going to move e3, which helps to support the pawn on d4, also frees this bishop. If you don't know, this bishop is actually headed towards d3, where it can actually then, since black is going to castle king side, or more likely, it will aim its bishop at the king side. If you don't know, the other option white could have chose was maybe to play g3 and then put the bishop here, helping to control the center, but it doesn't really attack the king side. So that's the reason e3 is played. And then black castles. Black wants to get the king in the safety because it's starting to look sort of dangerous for the king. Well, maybe not too dangerous in the center, but there are other options that black can play, but castling looks to be the best. It accomplishes one of the goals of controlling the center and castling and getting your pieces out. And then white plays knight to f3. What does this do? Well, one of black's aims is to play e5. So it stops e5, which wasn't really ever right now threatening to play e5, but later it will. 2, it develops a piece. And 3, if you don't know, if let's say if we decided to play d3 now, well then black could capture this pawn and then white would have to recapture, sort of losing a move, if you think about it. So white is delaying the development of the bishop because it's going to have to, if black captured, it would have to then spend another move capturing the pawn. And actually, in the Orthodox defense, or some defenses, this is actually a strategy by black to have white waste time recapturing that pawn. I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to continue this lecture on the next video.